Hello everyone and welcome to a truly amazing game from round 6 of the Meltwater Champions Chester Finals. A lot of you have already started requesting it, even though it just happened after 4 rounds of Rapid that ended in a draw. Here we have the first game of the Blitz section, as the little robot there suggests, and it's just a spectacular, adventurous game. Let's check it out and see what happens here. So Anish, with the white pieces, opens with e4. We had a lot of English openings in the Rapid time section, but now it's time for the Sicilian. So c5, Magnus goes for the Sicilian defense, knight f3, knight to c6, and the bishop to b5. Now going for the Nimzovich-Rossolimo. We have e6, and now castles by Anish. We have knight g to e7. And now striking in the center with d4. We have captures on d4, captures on d4, and queen to b6, going after the knight here, but also attacking the bishop. We have bishop to e3 now, defending the knight, and here we have knight captures on d4. It seems like you're losing the bishop here, but not really. Anish just defends it with a4, and you're gonna win back your piece on the next move. Is something that would usually happen. For example, if Magnus defends with e5, we're gonna play c3 and we're still gonna win back our piece, but Magnus says nope, you're not winning back your piece, I'm gonna give up the queen. And here Magnus plays knight captures on b5, so he grabs a second piece and offers a queen, but it comes with a little trick, because after bishop captures on b6, we have a captures on b6, and Anish cannot capture back the knight because the rook on a1 would hang. So it's basically 3 pieces for the queen. So how can Anish continue this? Knight to d2. Now the knight can be captured, the queen is guarding the rook here, and Magnus just goes back, knight to d6. So here, if you check out the position, Magnus has the bishop pair and a knight for a queen. Now, this is a materialistically compensation enough in itself, but he still has to develop those pieces. None of those pieces are in the game. So he starts with e5. Anish starts with e5, challenges the knight, and now knight d to f5. This is an excellent square for the knight, so at some point we will dislodge it with g4. We have knight to e4, Anish goes for knight to d6 check, and now knight to c6. Of course, preventing this, we have g4, chasing this knight away, and knight to h4 now. We have f4. Now the rook also guards the f3 square, so you don't have to worry about this knight here, but also you really just want to open up the position and start going after Carlsen's king before he develops his pieces. So h5, he says, all right, you want to open up the position, let's open up the position. My rook would very much enjoy a nice open or a semi-open h file. We have h3. You could also block this with the g5, but then you again allow this knight this beautiful f5 square, and that's something Anish doesn't want to do. So h captures on g4, and now Magnus strikes in the center with the d5. He has to give up some material in order to develop his pieces. Anish captures this very happily. E captures on d6 en passant, and now rook to a5, going after rook to d5, attacking the queen, and now he will be able to win back his pawn. So c4, Anish prevents this, and now f5, further opening up the position. He wants to attack that white king. He does have the bishop pair, but it's still a question of how you will develop this bishop pair. And now Anish goes for b4. He saw a couple of my videos, and he always... and he saw that always b4 wins for white, but here it doesn't win right away on the spot, but it's still a great move. So he dislodges this knight, otherwise you're gonna have to move away the rook. So knight captures on b4, and now he sacrifices this pawn with d7 check. We have bishop captures on d7, and now knight to d6 with check. And now the knight has to be captured. If you don't capture it, if you go, for example, here, the knight to f7 check picks up the rook, and king to e7 will further well, just make problems. You will not be able to develop your pieces. So bishop captures on d6, we have queen captures on d6, and now knight back to c6, and now finally rook 8 to d1, threatening queen captures on d7. So how can Magnus defend here? There's only one move, bishop to c8. It looks like such an ugly move, but if you look at the position, there's really nothing Anish can do here to try and go for something here. So in fact, rook 8 to d1 was not maybe the greatest move, but it's hard to play a good move here. You are down three pieces for the queen, and this is a blitz game. So what can you play here? Anish continues with the g5. We have knight back to g6. We have rook to f2 now, preparing to double up, and the king to f7 now. We have queen to c7 with check, maybe going after the b6 pawn, but just knight c to e7. You don't care about the b6 pawn, you're going to capture on a4, then you're going to go after the c4 pawn. So rook to d8, Anish offers a trade of rooks, and Magnus trades here. We have rook captures, queen captures, and now rook captures on a4. Queen to c7, guarding the c4 pawn, but now comes e5. Magnus wants to open up the position as he needs he needs to attack. We have f captures on e5. This is good for Anish as well, as this rook might now come alive, and just the bishop to e6, attacking the c4 pawn twice. We have queen captures on b7, rook captures on c4, and now queen captures on b6, and we've eliminated all of the pawns on the queen side. Now it's a matter of well, this structure here in front of Carlsen's king. Can Anish do something about it, or is it just rock solid? So knight captures on e5, grabbing yet another pawn, and now rook to e2, attacking the knight here. Now just rook to c6, attacking the queen, queen back to e3, putting pressure on the knight, and now knight 5 back to g6. And now this position does seem to be impenetrable, and it's not easy to play this with white. Whatever you do, you simply cannot make a single threat, or as our good friend Capablanca would say, the position is unassailable. If you remember it from the Capablanca saga. But okay, king h2, Anish has to play something, bishop to c4 now. Putting pressure on the rook, then the rook can come to e6. We can bring the other rook to e2. So a lot of options here. We have rook to b2. Now comes rook to e6. Attacks the queen, queen to f3, and now rook to e4. So now we're ready to start harassing that white king, but also we might be interested in maybe pushing the pawn to f4, then chasing back the queen, then maybe putting the bishop on this diagonal, then advancing the pawn even further. This could be just a very enjoyable pass pawn. So rook to b7. Now you have to be careful. The f pawn is hanging, the knight is pinned here. So bishop back to e6, defending this pawn. Now king to g1. We have rook to g4 check, king to h2, and now rook captures on g5, eliminating white's last pawn. And now Magnus will try and figure out a way on how to advance here. So rook to b6, and now comes bishop to d5, attacking the queen here. The queen now has to move. Queen to e3, and now rook to g2 with check. Of course, you cannot go to h1, then we simply win the queen. So king has to go to h3. Now comes rook to g4. Defending the f4 square. Now you can play f4, f3, and further advance your pawn. King to h2, now comes f4, attacks the white queen, queen to d4, and now rook to g5, just defending the bishop here, not allowing white to try any tricks here. Rook to d6, and now we have f3. Everything is nicely defended, so there's nothing to worry about here. Rook to d7, and now we have rook to f5, putting the rook behind the pass pawn, as one should always do. Queen to g4, and now bishop to e6. Of course, you were not thinking about advancing the pawn further. If you do this, then this just wins for white. The knight is pinned. Of course, Magnus prevents this. Bishop to e6. Now comes rook to d1. You have to try and stop the pass pawn now, but it's not going to be easy. Knight to e5, attacks the queen, queen to h4, now comes f2. King to g2, guards the f1 square with the king and the rook, but now we have bishop to d5 with check, king f1, and now bishop c4 check. We're guarding the f1 square twice now, king to g2, and now f1 queen. And it was in this position on move 53 that Anish Giri resigned the game, and the game 1 of the Blitz section goes to Magnus, which means he's not has taken the lead in the match, and we'll see what happens in game 2. Can Anish equalize and take it to Armageddon, or will it just be a win for Magnus? So yeah, here you resign because you're in check and you are down simply too much material, and if you capture the queen, then we can simply play check and it's over very quickly. For example, rook g3, rook f3 check, king h2, we can even give up some material to win back the queen, and now, for example, after everything gets traded down, we're winning. We have the passed pawn, so of course completely winning for black. So yeah, after f1 queen, Magnus brings his queen back into the game and wins a brilliant game. And it's interesting that this is something that Anish prepared, but it's Magnus who surprised him with this completely new knight captures on b5 queen sacrifice, or rather giving up a queen for 3 pieces. But so early in the game on move 8, this is just very impressive stuff. And although it's not objectively good for a blitz game where Anish probably saw this for the first time, it seems to be more than good. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ondrej František, Balkovic Enterprises, Ben Megreblian, Aaron Anderson, and Mr. Hoodie Guy for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this incredible event until it ends. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.